Hello, and welcome back to Healing Gals podcast, the podcast where we reconnect to who we were before the world got their hands on us. I'm your host, Molly Smith, and this week we have some really important conversations this week, gal. I wanted to speak about intergenerational trauma because I know there is so many of us that is carrying trauma from generations before us. There are things that we are reacting to and responding to that we have not been through ourselves, but there is something in our body that remembers. I don't know if that resonates with you, but that is certainly how I feel. And I speak to loads of women all the time, and I speak to a lot of people who are qualified in this area, and it has confirmed for me something that I have felt for a very long time. There has been stories that have been passed down to me about my granny, so my mam's mam, and stories that I have grown up with that now I think about them and I can't believe, number one, that was told to a child. That is something that I would only share with my daughter if she was an adult and I was able to help her pull it apart. There are things that have gone on in my family that are too hard to speak about on this podcast for sure. I wouldn't break anybody's trust, and it's not appropriate for me to share some of the things that have happened in my family. However, I want to make sure that those things don't happen to my daughter. And one of the ways that I know how to make sure that things don't repeat is when we heal them, when we understand them, when we understand the nature of generational trauma, and we understand that patterns are called patterns for a reason, you know? Like when you think of a pattern is something that is repetitive by default. It's a reoccurring image, it's a reoccurring behavior, it's a reoccurring thing. The defining word there is reoccurring, you know? When there are patterns that are ingrained in us, we continue them without our knowledge because we don't know any different. That is just what we grew up with. And certainly as I grew up and as I started to work on myself and heal, I started to realize all of these patterns that were so dysfunctional. One of the patterns that is very prevalent in my family line is teenage pregnancy, you know. And before I go any further, I will say, like I say in most of my episodes where I discuss my mum or my family, they were doing their best. This is no judgment on anyone. This pattern started long before them and will continue long after us unless we heal it. It's a default. It's subconscious. It's unconscious. So this isn't a criticism or any sort of harsh reality like that. Any sort of harsh judgment or anything. Not at all. Not at all. But if we don't talk about it, it will continue. So in my childhood, we didn't really talk about minding your body, protecting your body, knowing your cycle inside and out. Jesus, we've only as a society learned that there are 4 stages in a woman's menstrual cycle. Like, this is all new information to us, you know? So there's no judgment on the fact that I wasn't taught enough about my body to deeply understand what I'm feeling, how to work with how I'm feeling while keeping myself safe and keeping myself not pregnant, you know? So as I've learned about that, I have broken that cycle with Brooke. Brooke is 18 years of age. She is, you know, actually I can't even talk about her business on here. There's so much that I would love to share about conversations that I have with Brooke, but it's not appropriate because we're having those conversations. They're active, but maybe in a few years when she's older, it'll be more appropriate to talk about it, but not right now. However, all that to say, I work really hard on identifying the dysfunctional patterns of my family and changing them. And I'm very proud of that. With all that in mind, I wanted to have somebody on where we could discuss intergenerational trauma. And there are some very clear main themes that are affecting us as women, but specifically as Irish women. So I invited Caoimhe Gibney on the podcast. She is a somatic specialist physiotherapist. She's incredible. She's very educated on this topic. I speak to her about how she got into the work that she's in at the moment, why she's passionate about it. We learn a lot about Caoimhe in the episode, and we learn a lot about how intergenerational trauma happens, where it comes from, what the definition is, and how we work with it. And most importantly, how we work with it. I want us to know how we break those cycles, how we break those generational curses on our families, because we certainly deserve good lives now, gals. You know, as Irish women, we've been through an awful lot. We've been through a huge amount, and we are still not at the level of freedom, of bodily autonomy, of equality that we should be, but we will be someday. Bring on the matriarchy. With that in mind, I wanted to have a conversation about things that are going on in our country at the moment, because these very much tie into the theme of intergenerational trauma, and you cannot look at your phone or your telly without seeing these being discussed at the minute. We're going to have a discussion around Bessborough, Tuam, what's going on in our country in relation to how the church has treated the women in this country, and the men. A lot to answer for there, for sure. However, today specifically, I'm just going to have a chat with you about Bessborough and Tuam. A few years ago, I became aware of a woman called Catherine Corliss, and she blew me away. She just blew me away. It might have been, I think I heard about her on the radio or something, and it was like the beginnings of me like really realizing how incredibly powerful and special and driven Irish women are. When we see an injustice, when we see something that needs to be done, when children are being affected, there is nothing like an Irish woman. And I'm very proud to come from a country that has so many strong, powerful Irish women. Now, we have had to be strong. We have been through a lot. We had the famine, we had the Magdalene laundries, we had all of these really adverse experiences in our history as a society, as a nation. And there are just some women that have just shone through and been real leaders, and leaders of thought, leaders in getting policy changed, leaders in getting laws changed. And when I see women like that, they move me, they make me emotional, they inspire me. I love women like that. I'm grateful for women like that, and I aspire to be a woman like that myself in the capacity that I can fulfill that. I certainly would like to think that I would leave a positive impact in the world and make some change for someone, for women, you know. I feel like I'm at the beginning of that with my work with Healing Gals podcast, and I'm very proud of what I'm doing so far. But I strive to be someone like Catherine. I was going to say Catherine Conley, another one, Catherine Corliss. If you don't know who Catherine Corliss is, she's a woman from Tuam in Galway. She grew up there and remembered hearing stories about a septic tank that had two kids had lifted some cover or something, and they found human remains in it, and somebody said that's from the famine, and that didn't really add up to her. When she got older, there was other things that were kind of reports of bad practice that went on in the Tuam baby home, and she decided to investigate. She bought 926 death certificates and could find no burial site for these children who had all of these death certificates. And she brought her findings to the government, the guards and the government, and they commissioned an inquiry. From that inquiry, they decided that they were going to do an investigation on multiple sites similar to Tuam Baby Home. One of those sites was Bessborough. So Bessborough was a mother and baby home as well. And this is the timeline on what's gone on with Bessborough, just to get you caught up, okay? So what's important that you know is that An Comisiún Pleanála is Ireland's government-established independent body responsible for deciding on appeals regarding planning decisions made by local authorities, which is like city councils or county councils, right? An Comisiún Pleanála approved plans for a 106 apartment residential development by Estuary View Enterprises at the former Bessborough Mother and Baby Home site in Blackrock, Cork. The decision sparked intense public backlash, protests and calls from survivors and political figures to halt the project over concerns about unrecorded child burial sites. Okay? The Bessborough Mother and Baby Home opened in 1922, and over its history it housed nearly 10,000 women and 9,000 children. So that's a lot of people affected by this, okay? In 1998, that facility closed down. The Tuam revelations happened in 2014 when Catherine Corliss discovered the death certificates for 796 children at the Tuam institution, but found no matching burial records, leading to the discovery of remains in a former sewage tank. In response to the public shock and survivor demands, the government established the Commission of Investigation into Mother and Baby Homes. The mandate was that the independent panel, chaired by Judge Yvonne Murphy, was tasked with investigating 14 mother and baby homes and 4 county homes spanning 1922 and 1998. So Catherine Corliss does her work. They start investigating the situation across all of those mother and baby homes. And in their investigations, the issue in Bessborough was raised. The commission investigated high mortality rates, vaccine trials, forced adoption arrangements and general living conditions, which eventually led to the shocking specific audit of Bessborough's 923 missing child deaths. In 2021, a State Commission of Investigation revealed that 923 children died at the institution. However, the burial places of only 64 children can be accounted for, leaving the remains of 859 children missing. In December 2025, this company, Estuary View Enterprises, submits a new large-scale residential development application for 140 units on the former grounds of Bessborough. In February 2026, 2 months later, Cork City Council approves the plans and everyone is going insane. What do you mean? What do you mean? What are you talking about? You're about to build 140 apartments on grounds that are currently being investigated for abuse. Where in the world does that make sense? There are kids. This is Ireland. We are human beings. There are children missing. And you're going to build 140 apartments on those grounds. Did the church ask you to build the apartments on the grounds? What's going on here? Where does anyone in their right mind think there's 859 dead bodies of children, of the women of Ireland missing, unaccounted for, women that could not grieve for their kids? You know what we'll do? We'll build 140 apartments on it. Are you okay? I don't fucking think so, pal. So obviously survivors have been up in arms, as we should be, as we absolutely should be. And I say we because we are the women of Ireland. They're our sisters. That's our gals. And their kids are not laid to rest. They went through too much. They went through things that no woman should have to go through. And we're not even going to give them the peace of finding out where their poor little baby is. Not good enough. Not good enough. March 2026, politicians' appeals are formally lodged with the planning board. The issue reaches the Dáil. Why does it have to? This is what I don't understand. Why, when something is so self-explanatory, does it take for women to fight and fight and fight, get it to the Dáil for someone to listen? When something is so common sense, I don't get it. I'll never get it. Where TDs state that the development should not progress. In June 2026, so just a month ago, survivors hold a major emotional vigil at the gates of Bessborough, with some pledging to chain themselves to construction machinery if necessary, because they will not be allowed to build those 140 apartments over the bones of babies of our women. Have you met the women of Ireland? You're not building them apartments. You won't be building them. So then the crisis happened in July, just this month, and Comisiún Pleanála officially grants planning permission for the apartment block, and campaigners are left devastated. So after all of that, how would you ever settle? How would you ever have peace knowing that that's there? You wouldn't. We're not having it. The 10th of July, public outcry grows rapidly with intensified calls for the Irish state to issue a compulsory purchase order. So you might have heard people talk a lot about a CPO. That's the compulsory purchase order, and our state could just make a compulsory purchase order and take control of that land and give the women of our country the respect and the dignity and the peace that they deserve. But they have yet to do that. 17th of July, Taoiseach Micheál Martin intervenes. He asks Cork City to urgently engage with the landowners to explore alternative solutions or a potential state purchase. And then only a couple of days ago, it's revealed that former Children's Minister Catherine Zappone wrote directly to the Planning Board outlining that adequate forensic mapping was never done. She publicly demands an immediate pause to the project, stating it is a moral obligation to look for the missing children before building. Hello. To say the least. Tuam is still being investigated. The ground is still being excavated, and they are still in the process of processing that land. Bessborough has not got the opportunity for the excavations, and the adequate forensic mapping has not been done on Bessborough site. So there will be no apartments built there. We won't be having it. It's not happening. This is very much something that is impacting Irish women today. This is still something that we are experiencing. We are still having to fight. How would anyone reach a stage in their life where they can say, oh my God, this is just, everything is so peaceful, I'm doing so well, while a child that they gave birth to is still missing? That has to be one of the hardest things that you would ever have to deal with. Everyone deserves peace. Everyone deserves bodily autonomy, the right to know where your child, to know that you're safe, all of those things. And they have not happened yet. So until they happen, we're not going to stop fighting. And we can't have peace when we're still having to fight for basic human rights. It's actually a joke. It's a joke. Now, the reason that I wanted to talk about this as part of the conversation with Caoimhe Gibney, the somatic specialist physiotherapist, is because these are the kind of things that we are carrying from generations past, as well as the individual experiences that families are having and passing down through specific generations. So it's important that we take into account what we're experiencing in our country as the women of the country, and then as the women in our individual families. The historical abuses in the mother and baby homes, alongside generations of poverty, institutionalisation, famine and strict religious and colonial rule, have left deep-rooted emotional scars on Irish society. This is also the reason why Northern Ireland is one of the most dangerous places to live as a woman, because of all of the violence and segregation and hate and conflict that they experienced up in Northern Ireland. The people of Northern Ireland are still carrying that, and that's why there is a lot of violence in Northern Ireland. They are still carrying that trauma with them, and therefore their society is very violent. There is a lot of healing to be done in Northern Ireland, and a lot of people believe that that will only happen once Ireland is unified. I do believe that every country has the right to self-determination. So psychologists, sociologists and historians identified these lingering effects as intergenerational trauma passed down through generations. In Ireland today, this trauma manifests across health, society and personal well-being in several distinct ways. The first one, healthcare and institutional mistrust. Decades of systemic abuse within state-funded, church-run, medical and residential institutions have created a unique cultural friction with authority. For example, fear of care facilities. Many older Irish adults harbour a deep-seated, often subconscious anxiety towards hospitals, nursing homes and clinical settings, associating them with confinement, judgment or loss of autonomy. Number 2, somatic symptom presentation. Intergenerational trauma frequently manifests physically. Studies in Ireland show higher than average rates of chronic pain, fibromyalgia and gastrointestinal issues among people with family histories of institutional trauma, where emotional pain was historically suppressed and held in the body. And the third one, in relation to healthcare and institutional mistrust, shame in seeking mental health help. While younger generations are highly open, older demographics still struggle with intense stigma around mental health, viewing psychological distress as a personal failure or something to be kept strictly behind closed doors. Now, when you're dealing with that level of fear, shame, pain, illness, how are we healing? You know? So the next part is the social manifestations, the culture of silence. So this is how intergenerational trauma shows up within this culture of silence. For decades, survival in Ireland often depended on conformity and secrecy, and this has shaped modern Irish social dynamics. So For example, the say nothing mentality, a cultural tendency to avoid open confrontation or emotional vulnerability. Difficult family histories such as secret adoptions, addiction or abuse are frequently hidden under a veneer of respectability. What will the neighbours say? That is such an Irish, that we are carrying that behaviour as a result of intergenerational trauma. In a healthy society, there wouldn't be hidden histories, secret adoptions, secret addictions. We would be able to say, this is what's going on for me and I need help. But in a society where if you were not the perfect citizen, you could be institutionalized, or if you were too outspoken, you could be locked up, or if you became pregnant too young or outside of marriage, you were trafficked. That creates a huge say nothing mentality. That creates a huge, do you know what? We don't actually know what the outcome of this is going to be. Zip it. Zip it up, lock it up, don't talk about it. Hopefully that'll keep us safe. And actually it just makes us more unsafe, more vulnerable, and more susceptible to the issue continuing throughout the generations of your family line. And we don't want that for the younger ones. We just don't want that. Another way that intergenerational trauma shows up in our society is the emotional stoicism and humour. Irish people frequently use sharp wit, deflection and self-depreciation as a coping mechanism to mask deep-seated grief, anxiety or historical pain, diffusing heavy topics before they become too uncomfortable. Now, who can relate to that? That is so typical, but like I would have said that's part of our personalities, but it's actually a trauma response. Hilarious. And the other way that intergenerational trauma shows up in society is in collective mourning and activism. On a positive note, this shared trauma has created a deeply empathetic society. The rapid, overwhelming public support for campaigners like Catherine Corliss and the Bessborough survivors shows a collective societal drive to right past wrongs and heal together. And that is something I love about our country. That is what I'm talking about, like the women that I spoke about at the start of this episode. Incredible. Just there's no one like us. There's no one like us. We shouldn't have to fight this hard for wrongs to be righted, but I'm proud of the women of our country that do this work, and I'm very grateful to them. And then intergenerational trauma and how it affects well-being, identity and displacement. The disruption of family lineages through forced adoptions and emigration has left a distinct mark on the collective Irish psyche. Like the fractured identity of adoptees, thousands of citizens grew up with a profound, painful sense of rootlessness. Before recent tracing laws, being legally barred from knowing one's medical history, birth name or origins caused chronic identity crises and low self-worth. Speaks for itself. Transferred parenting patterns. Trauma alters how people parent. Survivors of harsh environments who never received emotional warmth or physical affection sometimes struggled to express those to their own children, inadvertently passing emotional neglect down the family line. I know we can all identify either that in our own families or friends of ours who you can see their parents are not affectionate with them, do not know how to be vulnerable with them, do not know how to connect. That's intergenerational trauma. And then grief of the diaspora, the historical trauma of forced emigration where families were permanently fractured due to economic hardship or social exile, remains a quiet background note in Irish well-being, characterised by a unique cultural melancholy. And then there's an Irish word here, canalis, or a deep longing for home. And when we say forced emigration, that means so many things. That means in the famine, when we were forced to emigrate to America and our whole families were lost, died on the ships, them coffin ships, in mother and baby homes where children were emigrated to America unknowns to the mother and left the mother grieving and wondering if she'll ever see that baby again, looking out for him on every street, going to where he used to sleep to see if she can get a smell of him. Gals, that is just too much to think about. That's too much to think about. So with all of that in mind, I do believe that we are stronger together. Our voices are stronger when we're all shouting from the rooftops what the women of Ireland need to change. So if you see social media posts about Bessborough, if you see anything to do with Bessborough, Tuam, any of this work that is righting the wrongs that have been done against the women of our country, just hit repost. If those kind of social media posts are getting absolutely blown up, that will give the government the message that we all feel strongly about that. When videos are going viral and when the rest of the world is looking at Ireland saying, what's going on in Ireland? They want to build apartments on top of where kids are buried and missing. What the fuck is going on in Ireland? That's what makes change. We literally have to shame our government into change. Because if we didn't have to shame them into change, they would just know this is wrong and they would right it themselves. They have the power. They know morally what's right. So, you know, if all we can do is continue to repost all of these things about Bessborough and Tuam and anything else that our Irish gals need, let's do that. Let's make a commitment. I will shout this from the rooftop for the gals. You don't have to be someone that goes and speaks on to camera on social media. I understand that that's not for everybody, but reposting is one tap of a button. We can easily do that, gals. So let's get behind them. They deserve our support. I'd like to direct you to a couple of documentaries around these topics that are really powerful to watch. So I'll let you know those documentaries at the end of the episode. So stay tuned. But for the moment, I'm going to pass you over to Caoimhe Gibney, the somatic specialist physiotherapist that is on the episode this week to talk all things intergenerational trauma. This is a 2-part episode, so you will hear Caoimhe talk about how she got into this field, etc., all of the things that I told you at the start of this episode, and then we get into intergenerational trauma, and next week it will be part 2. So I hope you enjoy the episode, gals. Thank you as always for being here. I'm so appreciative of all of the support that I get for Healing Gals podcast. To all the new listeners, you're so welcome. I'm thrilled to have you. The more the merrier. The more gals getting to know themselves, getting reconnected back to who they were before the world got their hands on us. That's what we're interested here in Healing Gals. So you're so welcome. And if you could come along and follow me on Instagram, if you could, wherever you get your podcast, if you follow Healing Gals podcast, that helps. Give it a rating. Any of them, tap any of them buttons if you can. If you enjoy the podcast, and I'll talk to you at the end. Thanks, gals. Okay, welcome back to Healing Gals podcast, gals. I'm sitting here with Caoimhe Gibney, who is a somatic specialist physiotherapist.
That's it.
Amazing. I wanted to have Caoimhe on because I just love your content, gal.
Oh, thank you.
I love your content. I'm very much so looking forward to doing. I want to do the 7-day
somatic abundance.
Somatic abundance. Yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
I was going to respond to your thing yesterday, abundance, and then I was like, no, I need to wait until I see her. But yeah, I very much so want to do that because that is like that. I'm so. I feel like I've gone through a lot of talk therapy and all of that stuff, and I feel like somatics is really resonating with me at the moment. So
amazing.
I wanted to have you on to speak about that, and also you speak a lot on your in your content around intergenerational trauma. Mm-hmm. The reason that I feel so strongly about us exploring intergenerational trauma is because I feel that the trauma that we have experienced as women throughout our history in Ireland, around the Magdalene laundries, around how very little rights women had. Like, when you look at some of the stories, like, women couldn't order a pint, they had to have a short, you know. Well, I think it was like Nell McCafferty who ordered like 100 shorts and a pint, and when they said, I think she ordered 50 shorts and 1 pint, and when they said, we're not giving you the pint, she said, well, I won't be paying for any of them. So they had to let her have the pint, and she was the first woman to order and drink a pint in a pub in Dublin.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like
Wow.
there's remarkable women in Ireland, gal. There's remarkable women that have come out of our country. So I know that we can overcome a lot, but I would love for us to just kind of explore that, you know?
That.
Is that okay?
Yeah, amazing.
Cool,
Let's do
cool.
it.
So before we start, I'd like everybody to kind of get a feel for you. So you used to be you used to work in palliative care.
Yeah.
And I know you had said in one of your videos that, like, I wrote down what you said. You said, when people were dying around me, you felt like a part of you had started to die.
Yeah.
Will you tell me a bit about that?
Oh, I think I didn't have the tools nor the resilience to process grief at that level.
Sure.
So I was like, new grad, that was one of my placements in college and I loved it, but I was going through something, like my family, within our own family, moving through something personal related to cancer at that time. So even being in that setting was really challenging when I was in college, but I loved it. And I do think part of me loved the hardship of it. Like we say, we're addicted to our suffering. I think a little part of me felt like I'd be a good person if I did the hardest job.
Wow.
So there was definitely an element of proving it to myself.
Okay.
And when I worked there first, so I came out of college, I was working as a sports physio sessionally. So I covered teams, and then I was working in Santry, and I really enjoyed that. It was very easy, but part of me felt like it was nearly too easy. And then when this job came up, I interviewed for it, and I had a good sense that I would get a temp role because I was already in there, like I had done a placement there. And when I got the job, I didn't think I'd be put straight into palliative. I thought I might be put into like chronic pain or extended care, one of the others.
What was your course? What was your qualification? Sorry to interrupt the episode, gals, but I have to show you my mat. This mat depicts the cliffs of Moher. It is stunning. I wanted to show you this mat in person because I just don't think the photos do it justice. In my opinion, one of the best things about these mats is that number one, it's machine washable. I bring my mat to the forest all the time, and she is in the machine and she is like brand new. Can you see the shine on that mat? That is because this mat has a suede finish on the top. It is thick, bouncy, tea colour rubber, so it's non-toxic. But look at the finish. When your bare skin is on this mat, it does not stick to the mat. The imagery is absolutely stunning. Once you put it down, it's down. It's not moving. Listen to my podcast for a while. You will know I am a champion of women and women in business. Dara Mats is an Irish-owned, woman-run business. These mats are designed as a one-time purchase, so you will not be replacing this mat every few years. This is a lifetime purchase. This is an investment in your practice. It is an investment in your day, and you will not regret buying yourself one of these mats. They're also a fabulous gift for someone if you have something special coming up. So if you want to invest in yourself and buy yourself one of these gorgeous mats, go to daramats.com, and Healing Gals listeners get a discount. Enter Healing12 at the checkout to get 12% off your very own Dara mat. Now, back to the episode.
Physio.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, physio. So I did physio in UCD, and I absolutely loved it. Like, I love being a physio. I always say I haven't technically left it. I've just transformed it a little bit. But in that time, I didn't think they would give a palliative job to a new grad. But when I went down onto the ward...
Why? Because it's so heavy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very heavy, very complex. Like, really, if you think about, generally when you come out of college, you have to do rotations through different areas to make sure that you understand them. So like, you'll do musculoskeletal, where you learn about just the body, then you'll do respiratory, where you learn about just rest. But people who come into palliative care, if they're at end of life, are very complex. They have a lot of things going on all at once. So I was kind of thrown in the deep end. Look, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, but I didn't have the resource. Like, I didn't have the resilience. So I would get really attached to each patient, like want to know their whole life story, sit with them for way longer than I could, stay till all hours. Like, I had no boundaries around going in or leaving in the evenings. Didn't have anybody to talk to about it. It was my first time living out of home without my friends. So I was in a house with lovely girls, but I'm not going to come home in the evenings and say, well, like, half the ward died today, and sit there. So I just was bottling it and bottling it and bottling it. And then after Christmas that year, I just completely burnt out. Like, my eyes were blowing up. I have stuff on Instagram of what it looked like when I was burning out. But I remember walking into work and ringing my mum saying, Mum, I can't walk. She was like, what do you mean? I was like bent over on that little strip of road out to Harold's Cross. I was bent over crying, and she was like, Kiva, it sounds like it's your appendix. And I was like, it can't be my appendix. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. Went into work and we were so understaffed. I remember them saying, like, maybe you're just constipated. Like, just go down onto the ward because we don't have any other staff. And I went down onto the ward, and I remember sitting in a meeting sweating. I knew there was something really wrong. And I said to one of the doctors, and she said, if it feels like getting stabbed, it's likely surgical. Went to the GP that day and ended up having to get my appendix out, and that was the first like break I had where I realised I can't do this. And I stayed in that job for another nearly 2 years, but I learned so much about myself and like resilience and how I can't take it home, and I couldn't do what I do now having I not done that then, because I would have been shit at what I do now. So look, it all happens for a reason, but a big part of that was learning how to process grief, and grief that's not yours. And something that was really profound and was given to me by a doctor at the time. It's just like, Eva, it's not your grief today. Like, it's not your pain today. It's not your suffering today. It's not your hurt today. Your day will come, but right now you're there to support them. So if you take that on, you're no good to anybody. And I'm like, that is the best thing I can give to a facilitator, is like, I literally have a facilitator texting me there being like, help. And I'm going to say that exact thing to her. It's not yours today. You can't take that on.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that's really profound. How many of us, especially women, are going around in the world taking on everybody's problems,
everything,
and we feel that if we do, we're being more helpful because we're really connecting or we're really in the moment with them, you know. I think that's a really clever lesson to learn of like what's yours and what's someone else's, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who supports you? What something I see in a lot of my clients is there's nobody supporting them. So you're always the support. You're always the sounding board. You're always the person that comes to the rescue. And when your time comes, do you feel like you have to do that alone? Because the idea of relationship is reciprocity. So they should be able to give and receive. And if our relationships are all not doing that, they're lopsided, you're giving everything and you're getting nothing in return. And it shouldn't just be transactional, but there's a lot of women who are that person for everyone in their life and no one is that for them. And then your system just starts to believe that this feeling of abandonment is actually our baseline, like this feeling of I have to give in order to be worthy. And it really wrecks your nervous system. So I talk a lot about like that good girl syndrome or like the overgiver, that archetype.
Yeah.
You're just asking to get an autoimmune condition or to end up. And I think a lot of the people I saw in palliative care, when I did want to know their whole life story and understand it, there was a common thread between people who were sitting in front of me at the end of their life. Like, it's kind of obvious that people who abandon themselves over and over again, their body ends up abandoning them at some point. And it's just really hard to sit and see. And particularly there's a generation of women who, you know, like my mum's friends, my mum, her whole identity is being a mother. And she's an amazing mother, but I love her as a person. I am who I am because I watch my mum do amazing things that she can't even recognise in herself. So it's heartbreaking when women just like give it all away only to find out that you come back and you don't know who you are anymore.
Yeah.
So,
And if you have, you're abandoning yourself in the hopes that someone else won't abandon you, you know?
Yeah.
Like a lot of the times we are giving as much as we're giving because we think that we will eventually receive or that the person will stay or the person will love us more or whatever. And in doing that, in the end, your body ends up abandoning you. Oh my God.
yeah,
Kiva.
I know. I know.
We're going to have to take a minute.
I know.
That's really big, like.
I know.
Wow.
I think it's like making sure people know that. For me, it was this moment of my body has just given up on me. I remember sitting in the bed crying. I had this moment in the hospital, and I had done a placement in that hospital. And when you're on the other side of the door, like when you're the person going in and you're like, come on, get up. So I had this moment where she said to me, you're going to have to get up and go to the toilet tonight. And I looked at the nurse like, stand up right now. I can't even move in the bed. I'm in so much pain. And that night I remember having this thought in my head, like the physio in me kicked in, being like, you need to walk, like you need to get up and walk, because there's a whole bunch of processes that happen when you start to walk after surgery. And I remember getting up and standing and being like, I can do this on my own. So like, it didn't ring for help because I was always the person who'd come in the morning and be like, come on now, get up, you've had your surgery yesterday, I'm going to help you walk. Right. So I had this moment where I'm going to get to the bathroom, and halfway I fell, like I was on the floor on my hands and knees, like panting in pain. And I remember thinking, you're so fucking stubborn that you won't ask for help.
Whoa.
And like bawling, crying. Then I realised I couldn't get to the fucking bell. So I was there on the floor. I had to crawl across, and I rang my mum. I was like, can you ring the ward and tell somebody to come up for me? And to say I sat there just embarrassed, like so embarrassed, so ashamed this happened to me. And the nurse came and she was like, why wouldn't you just ask for help? And I was like, I just thought I could do it on my own. And she was like, every single person is going to need another person at some point in their life. The longer you leave that, the more you'll need them in the end. And I just got back into the bed, sat there, and I was like, God, I can't keep doing this. And when I went back into work after being burnt out, I started to ask for help. It's like I had one physio who is now like one of my best friends. She's amazing, but she was way ahead of me. She was a senior. And I just said to her, I'm really struggling in here. Like, I don't know how to manage this. I don't know what to do. And to say she took me under her wing. And a lot of what came after this was like through her encouragement.
Wow.
Yeah. She was like, get out of here, go.
Wow.
Go. And yeah, encouraged me to go for other jobs, encouraged me to run my first Pilates class, like saw that I couldn't do what I was doing at the scale that I was doing it at. I was like, well, there are other ways to help people.
Yeah.
You don't have to lose yourself in the process of doing good things or being a good person. So yeah, I think just asking for help can literally flip a switch in your head. And once you do that, there's no going back. Like, you're always going to be like, people are here to support me. But if people don't know what I'm going through, that's going to be really hard.
Okay.
So yeah, I think a lot of women, well, me included, just need to sometimes hear like, people actually want to support you.
Yeah.
They want to help you. But if you put yourself in that position that you're always the martyr, you're always the giver, people just assume you're fine.
Yeah. Is there a belief there that maybe we're not worthy of helping, or maybe like there's always somebody that's worse off, so like I'm not the one that should ask for the help, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. I think it also comes down to, yes, the worth wound of, am I bad enough for it? Is my situation as bad as somebody else's? And then the other side of, are we just conditioned? Did we grow up learning that when we give and when we're good and when we're useful and when we help everybody else, that's when we're loved?
Yeah.
So we associate this giving or this pleasing everybody else ahead of ourselves. Because like the greatest insult growing up for me anyway would have been to be called a bitch. And now I kind of low-key love when someone calls me a
Yeah.
bitch. I'm like, oh, you think I'm a bitch? I'm doing something right, because I'm actually healing that people pleaser that would die if someone called me a bitch.
Yes. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
If you got the bitch version of me, you deserved the bitch version of me.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm a bitch by default, but I think if
No.
somebody treats me in a way that I have to be boundaried and you don't like that, that's actually not my
For
problem.
sure.
Yeah.
I think it was Gabor Mate that said either be a bitch or get an autoimmune disease.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll take the bitch. I'll
take
be the
bitch. Absolutely. Yeah. It is. It's one of those things. But...
Episode 3 of this of Healing Alice podcast was I was speaking on my own, and one segment of it was around healthy anger, and I feel like I feel we have a lot to be angry for, and I feel that we could do so much better in how we release that, you know, so that it's not trapped in the body. And I now that I've learned this and I've become aware of it, when I watch women, let's say, what was I watching? I was watching something yesterday and I was like, there it is again. I can spot it. Like, I can spot when a woman is suppressing, what was it? I won't remember now. But whatever it was, a woman had gotten some sort of negative interaction. She was treated badly. And she went, you know what it was? It was Jessie Nelson from Little Mix. She was going to the UK Parliament. She's trying to achieve this thing for children. Her children were born with SMA, it's called. And in Ireland, we automatically test every child for that with a heel prick test. But in England, they don't do that. So her children were born with this completely preventable thing that means they'll never walk. They won't be able to lift their heads, like. And if they just had got that heel prick test, they would have been fully able-bodied, you know. So anyway, she got there, and because of there's like a reshuffle going on in UK Parliament, they didn't see her, or they weren't willing to engage in the debate, or whatever it was. And she was speaking to the camera. She's been interviewed for like This Morning or something, and she was speaking to the camera, and she was like, she has Botox and stuff, which is not a judgment, but she's not expressing, like, you know, she's talking about something that she's hugely passionate about, but she's suppressing. So she's saying, to be honest, I'm fuming, you know. And I'm like, Angel, okay, maybe you're staying composed because you're being interviewed on the telly, but I hope you go home and trash your mattress, like scream and like punch all of that anger and just the injustice of that out of you, because that will fester and you'll become unwell, you know. And every time when I'm watching something and a woman is being hurt or being, you know, whatever, and they're just like, I'm fine. I'm like, oh, you might be fine right now, gal, but you better get yourself to a forest, get yourself to a mattress, get yourself somewhere and express that anger, let it out, you know.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the whole process of somatics, in its essence, is just you finding a way to use the body as a vessel to move that. So yeah, like screaming it out, punching it out, like that's literally somatics in its essence, which is my favorite thing about it. Yeah, it's so natural. It's exactly what an animal would do. It's exactly what we would do if we weren't conditioned to be like, you know, appropriate or poised,
civilized.
Yeah. So it's wild. And you do see women literally swallow it, like bite our tongue.
100%.
Like those phrases are they're not just random phrases, like you bite your tongue. You literally swallow the anger. And I'll say to a lot of women who work with me, like, you need to get to the point of rage. I want you in rage. Like, you're allowed to go there. Because I get a lot of, oh, I'm not an angry person. I'm not an angry person. And I'm like,
what does that mean?
Anger is a normal emotion. It's not something that we have to be shameful of. Yeah. And I understand, so a really good point came up recently in a training where one of the girls asked, like, but I associate anger with bad people because that's what she saw growing up. And I was like, this is such an interesting reflection that yes, unhealthy anger will destabilize your nervous system from a really young age. So if somebody does raise their voice at you, what happens internally can be that, oh God, I'm not safe. So either I'll fawn, like I'll get small, I'll appease and please you, or I'll run away, I'll freeze. Like those nervous system responses will literally happen. So she's associated like someone raising their voice or someone getting irate or angry with being a bad person, with bad things happening afterwards, because that was her reality.
Okay.
So then as a woman, when she feels rage, anger, disrespect, the first thing that happens in her body is like, no, that means I'm bad. And shame means you think you're bad. Guilt means you know something bad has happened or you've done something bad, but it doesn't make you a bad person. So shame kicks in and suppresses the whole system, because shame is one of the lowest energetic frequencies. So if we look at it like that, you now think everyone around you is going to make you unsafe if they express needs, lay down boundaries. So you become hyper vigilant to the world, thinking she's off with me, she's mad with me, he's not going to talk to me again, I'm a shit person, obviously. And then internally you can't express your own rage because that makes you a bad person. You've like double ended it.
Whoa.
And I just said, you know, if you don't want to, I totally understand not wanting to lash out. Nobody likes that. You don't need to do that for your children. You don't want to do that with your partner. But how do you take the rage that you feel and move it? And that's where I need you to have a practice for that. So not that everything needs a tool, but you know, like I have weeks, and particularly in a month, if you cycle sync, so you know your cycles. The week before my period, I got really irritable. I'm not getting irritable for no reason. People are pissing me off. I'm just less tolerant in that week.
Yeah.
So I need to take time. Like I need to take time, and I will go and like scream into the pillow. I will go and get angry. Like there's a few really good songs that we do in somatics where you like stomp it out or shake it out. I'll like punch it. Like you're doing something with this energy in your body to actually move it.
Yeah.
And then I won't lose my shit at people.
Yeah. Do you see?
Yeah. Because, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not for anger.
Not for anger?
Though. No, not for anger of singing. For me anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I could definitely try, but I tend to sing to get to a different place, maybe. Anger, I feel like I need to cry, like really deeply wail,
Right.
cry, scream, punch, stomp, run. I really like to run if I'm angry as well, but like sprint, this like gently jogging along, I'll just be like, I'm frustrated, because frustration and anger, yeah, I'm like sprint it out,
gone.
like actually move that energy, because it's a great charge. And then I'll always ask afterwards, what was the anger teaching me? Like what was it trying to tell me? And where did that boundary now need to come in? Because if somebody is pissing me off, I mean, either I haven't communicated the boundary and how are they meant to know? That's my responsibility. Or I have communicated the boundary and they're crossing it. And that is again my responsibility to call that out.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, so many
Gal,
ways.
you're so wise. That is so good. Yeah,
No,
thank you.
You're this is personally how I work with it. And look, like these things come up in
Yeah.
training spaces. It's so fun and amazing to be in a space where everybody feels safe enough to share. So I find in trainings I get way deeper with people than maybe I would have access to like in a circle or yeah, like a normal class. So yeah, I'm really lucky to be able to get inside someone's brain, inside someone's body, and to see it the whole way through, which is cool. So yeah.
What a privilege.
I know, it is a privilege.
Yeah.
It's a total privilege.
How exciting to see people grow in that way, or grow. I feel like we have a focus on growth or like optimizing or whatever as a society, but like to see them maybe not grow, but maybe return to themselves or connect to their essence of what are they actually feeling? What is it telling them, and how can they work with their energy?
100%.
Yeah, really cool, gal.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
it
that.
is. And we'll always say that it's this returning to like wholeness. I think a lot of us enter into healing spaces feeling broken, and like we are looking for the solution, or we're looking for the person that's going to fix us. And if there's one intention that I'll carry into a training, into a retreat, into anything that I'm doing, it's I never want you to feel broken. There's nothing in the space that needs to be fixed. It's often just feeling that sense of wholeness. So like you're coming back to a feeling of there was nothing wrong with me. Things happened to me. People, were awful to me. Life was unfair to me, but we can't sit in that to me forever. I needed to feel powerful in it again. I needed to take back what was taken away and then walk out of there feeling a little bit more whole. And I think from that place of wholeness, you create a beautiful life for yourself. But if we're walking around feeling broken, we will find the evidence that we are broken.
Yeah.
So it's
There's a couple of things that I want to explore with you in relation to that. Before we move on from boundaries, something I'd love to get your take, something that I wish more women especially knew, but people in general, but specifically women because you're my gals, is that a boundary requires an action from you, like a verb, a doing word, you know. So I think a lot of times we say, like, I set a boundary, like I said, don't do that, I don't want that, you know. Whereas I would love for women to take in, from my perspective, from what I've learned, is like a boundary requires an action from you. So yes, you've identified you don't like that thing. What are you willing to do if that thing was to happen? That's the boundary part of it, you know. Otherwise it's just telling someone what to do, you know.
Yes.
And although you might be right, they, like, it might be awful what they're doing, the boundary part of it is the doing that you will do if that presents itself, you know.
I love that.
Yeah.
So good. And I think for women, in order to be able to sustain that, we have to work on our nervous system tolerance to hold the discomfort. So a lot of us...
We have to work on our nervous system tolerance to hold the discomfort. Oh, we
Yeah.
sure do, gal.
Yeah.
We definitely do. How do we do that?
So the biggest thing that happens are where we retract. So sometimes we can have great intentions and we'll go in and be like, this is my boundary. You disrespected me. Don't do it again. Right. So we lay the boundary down. And then, like you've said, I don't think people think about the aftermath. So when somebody inevitably does let you down or disrespect you again, how do you respond? And that's where the action comes in. What I see in a lot of women's bodies is that because we have never worked, and it's not about working on it, but we've never expanded our capacity, or we've never been in our body long enough to be with the discomfort, we'll do something else. Think about the women who are always doing something. Yeah. They're always on, they're always busy, they don't sit. And I'll often say to people, what are you so afraid of feeling that if you slowed down you'd have to feel it? And in that you'll recognize everything. But you'll recognize that if the uncomfortable thing happens again and I have to have a hard conversation, or I have to leave, or I have to, you know, say something that really, really hurts the other person, not because we're out to hurt them, but because they have disrespected your boundary again. And now there's a level of, okay, well, I'm going to have to address this. The discomfort of that conversation, the discomfort of making somebody else feel uncomfortable. That is where a lot of us just go, I can't do it.
Right.
I can't do it. And then we just fawn. We just flop. And we're like, go on then, just walk all over my boundaries again. And we get into these cycles. And from a somatic sense, it's like, okay, I sometimes sit, and in the challenge, you'll see this as well, but I do it a good bit. I have like a fawn to flow series on TikTok at the minute. And when we talk about it, I'll actually get you to imagine the last time you disappointed somebody, or the last time you had a hard conversation. And then I'll ask you, where do you feel that in your body? And now let's be with that, because we can't keep running from uncomfortable feelings. The more that we can be with it, so like we'll put a hand on it, we'll breathe into it, we'll be with it for even 5% more, so that when the thing inevitably happens, you don't balk. You don't go, oh God, no, it's too much. You say, no, I can be with this. This is uncomfortable, but it does not mean that it's wrong. My nervous system learned one thing, but I am learning something else. And then we repattern the nervous system, because the brain is one thing. The brain is getting the stimulus and saying this is unsafe, and the body responds with a whole cascade of things that happen when you feel unsafe. In order to, and that's why body-based healing is, well, it's how I work, because I'm not a psychotherapist, but I understand bodies intricately. So I look at your body response and then input safety. So when your body responds to something that it thinks is unsafe, if you're able to input safety, it's called resourcing. So if I resource you, or you resource you at that point, your body goes, oh, hang on, the alarm bell's going off, or the smoke alarm's going off, but there's no fire, it's just smoke. And then we're able to send a signal from the bottom up to the brain to say, actually, this is okay. So you're able to have the hard conversation without crying, without not being able to speak, without not being able to find your words. So yeah, there's loads of ways to do it. Some people will use like cognitive behavioral therapy, which would be from the top down. But I find it, women inherently are brilliant in their bodies, but we've just disconnected from it. I mean, if you can give birth, you can do the hardest thing in the world. Yeah. You can go back into that body and feel uncomfortable. Like, you can.
Say it again.
You can. But I think it's just, it's...
If we can give birth,
we
can certainly feel a bit uncomfortable. Yeah. Jesus, gal. This is great already. I love this chat. This is brilliant. This is exactly what I want the gals to hear.
Yeah, I think women are fucking amazing. Like, once a month, if you even think about that, like I said that to my sisters the other day, once a month we sit in pain, in agony, and we're just so used to it. Women tolerate so much pain in their life, so much discomfort in their life. So we have been taught, and I think this is quite patriarchal, but we have been taught that our emotional pain isn't relevant.
Yeah.
And that your physical pain isn't relevant either, because nobody listens to that either. But women, and if we speak woman to woman, I think we recognize the amount that women have to endure, how resilient women are. And when we speak on the trauma piece, I think it does come through this as well. But the emotional pain that we feel, it's, oh, she's crazy. Oh, she's just too much. That fucking word, too much, drives me nuts. She's too much. I'm like, so what? You feel uncomfortable with somebody expressing themselves. And I find it particularly hard at home. It's not at like living in Australia. I never felt like going out and doing what I wanted to do or being seen, particularly because doing all of this stuff, putting yourself out there, there is a wound of, oh God, what if people think I'm too much? That only really kicked in coming home. And I found that really hard to transition in the beginning.
Coming home from Australia?
Yeah.
Why?
I think, like, I'll always say to facilitators, I'm not going to lie to you and say that you're not being put in a WhatsApp group. People aren't laughing at you, because they are. They are. Now, how do we, and on the training, I do a specific part, like on day 2, we do a breathe where I actually say, I want you to imagine the person that you dread the most seeing the page that you're going to make, or the class that you're going to put up, the person who you know would judge you the most. I want you to imagine they're in front of you right now. And let's breathe them. Let's show them how good you are. Let's show them how big you are. Let's take away their power and put it back into your body. Because one of the biggest things that holds people back is the fear of the person who's going to judge them, or the person who's going to say, oh, did you see your one starting breath work or whatever? Cringe. I'm like, if we live our life in fear of those people who are going to say you're cringe, and like that whole thing of people will only say well done when it's worked, I cannot say that enough to people. In the beginning, people laughed. In the beginning, people were like, go back to your physio job. Like, what are you doing?
Wow.
And only now will people show interest because it worked. But I believed in it. And even if you're the only person that believes in it, you have to back yourself. But it's been uncomfortable. There was a lot of situations where people would like question me on it. And particularly, and I'm not my physio friends, but physios tend to be quite analytical and logical, and we do a Bachelor of Science, so we understand the science, and they'd be like, oh, but the breath work's kind of bullshit, is it not? And I go, actually, no, it's not. There's a whole lot of science behind it. And I'll explain the physiology, and they'll be like, whoa, like I didn't know that. I'm like, see, if you judge what you don't know, you already look a little bit stupid. So maybe don't judge me, maybe don't, just don't have an opinion on something you're not informed in. But anyway, I could rant for a while on that.
I actually, speaking of that, one of my favourite reels that you put up, and something that I has really helped me in my, because obviously I'm trying to build something and put myself out there, and like my passion is women, and you know, in one of the reels you talked about healing your nervous system. So initially when your content comes up, I'm like, what's she saying? And I clicked into it, and it was like healing your nervous system, and like I'm all about it, absolutely. I feel like I've done a lot of work and I've gotten to a certain place, but I love to hear more. Go ahead, Kiva. Yeah. But this was the best, right? So you had like five things that you do, or 5 ways to heal your nervous system. And when I hear a tagline like that, I'm like, okay, well, we're not going to do it in 5 ways, but like there's going to be something here that's going to help me, so like let's go. But gal, it's amazing. Right, so the first one was get angry. We've covered that already.
Nice,
and why that's important, right?
Yeah.
The second one was getting comfortable with rejection.
Nice.
And when you were speaking about that, you said, you specifically, and I'll quote you because I regularly look at it when I feel like when I feel this happen to me, which it does often. You said when you put yourself out there and you get comfortable with rejection, you send a message to your body that you're safe to be able to receive this. And you specifically said, when we're manifesting something, it will come in front of us and we won't be able to expand enough to take it. We recoil because shame shows up and it says, you're not worthy of that. You won't be able to hold that. You don't deserve that. And we push it away. And gal, that has happened to me. That's happening to me right now. Like right now in this moment, I've started a business. The next step, I'm after getting all these things, all these ducks in a row. Then my next step is to make a specific phone call. And my body is saying, oh God, you're that's gonna feel so uncomfortable, don't do that. But that is the next step of my business. And my body is telling me it's not safe. But like there's something under that, gal. There's like a shame, or I don't deserve it, or who do I think I'm an entrepreneur, or there's something. Like the thing that I have manifested is in front of me. It's a phone call away from me. And my body is like, maybe tomorrow. maybe tomorrow, do it tomorrow. Today's just not the right day. Do it tomorrow. And that was a week and a half ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So that exactly what you're, literally exactly what you're talking about is happening to me right now. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to let that go. I'm going to make that phone call today. And even though it's going to be uncomfortable, I've given birth. I've been through, I can feel discomfort.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, give your body examples. Give it examples of things that it has done that's really helpful. Or if you're thinking about the phone call, I will like back up the evidence. So the thing that you're afraid of, like the thing that's right in front of you, you back it up with evidence to say, well, I have done uncomfortable things before. This is just another uncomfortable thing.
One of the main things that I hear from people is that I wish I preserved their stories. I can't tell their stories the way they did. I can't sing their songs the way they did. Well, that's where Evertold comes in. Evertold is a legacy storytelling platform, essentially a personal podcast, if you will. I come to you with compact recording equipment and I sit with the person that you want me to interview in the place where they are most comfortable, and I ask all the questions that you want asked. I can ask them to sing their favourite song, I can ask them to tell their favourite stories, and you will then have that video recording saved in a beautiful treasure box on a memory key, just like this one, that can be plugged into any television, laptop for the rest of time. You will never regret doing an Evertold, but you may regret not doing it. So get in touch if you would like your very own Evertold for you or someone you love. And make sure their stories are not lost to time. Healing Gals podcast get a discount, so make sure you quote Healing Gals podcast when you contact me. I'll look forward to speaking to you.
I can do. I love that. And who do you have to be? So on the other side of this, one of the ways we reject a lot is, or we fear the rejection, is what or who do you have to be on the other side? So when you make the phone call and everything works out, what do you have to be? Who do you have to be? What responsibilities do you have to carry? Because when that changes our nervous system, before our cognitive or the cerebral part of this even kicks in, your body knows you're going to take on more responsibility. You're going to be more visible. You're going to be more seen. There's going to be more work. And sometimes unconsciously then we actually repel it.
Yeah.
Because we're like, I actually don't know if I'm ready for that. So we have to prime our body to hold it, but yeah, then not be afraid of the discomfort that's going to come along the way. I love that.
Wow.
Make the phone call.
Yeah, I will. Gal, I will. I'll text you when I make it.
Please
okay,
do.
It's not over.
Okay. I can't even remember what I said in this reel.
I can't believe that, because it means you never know what's going to resonate with someone. It means so much to me, you know. So when I go to, I'm like, it energizes me. It's like, yeah, okay, you're on track, Gal. We're refocused again, you know.
Yes.
The next part of it was put your money where your mouth is.
Oh yeah.
Invest in yourself. And sometimes we see these people advertising these wonderful retreats that promise that we will learn breath work or connecting to ourselves or whatever, and it sounds great. But like booking it and investing in it is like, that's a lot of money to spend on just me, little old me. Like I'll probably, you know, I'll maybe down the line, maybe, you know, and then we never get to go on something that we loved and that will greatly benefit us.
100%. It's the best thing, and I stress this so much. Like, my lifetime value of a client is huge. So nearly everybody who enters the space stays in the space. And I will say at the end, you don't need me. So they end up not coming back to the same thing, but moving forward. So my biggest converter into trainings is retreats, because when you come on retreat, you go, I can do that. Because that's what I want people to believe in themselves. It's like, I'm not special. There's literally nothing special about me. I just have maybe more, like, I've worked on my self-worth to the point that I say in my head I can rather than I can't. But I think if I can do that for myself, even when I'm scared, if I say I can do this, I give permission to the next person to say, I can do this. So it's like, I always say to the guys, it's one light. So having one flame or one torch, if we can light the next one, the light's brighter with everybody with the torch, rather than just me standing here being like, I have this great life, I did this great thing. I don't want to be inspirational. I want you to feel like you can do this for yourself. So yeah, the best thing I ever did was invest in myself, even at the smallest levels in the beginning, because I know it's scary. So even that first investment in yourself. And to say, I said this to my mom recently, you just get ballsier. You get bigger and ballsier, where you're like, that paid me back last time. Every single investment I've ever made in myself has paid me back tenfold. And I know when I put the money into something, it's going to come out in a different way. It might come out in experience, it might come out in wisdom, it might come out in something, but by God, does it pay me back? So like this year I put every cent of profit the business made last year back into the business this year. I'm on 2 different mentorships, like high ticket mentorships, because I said if I'm gonna bring people into a place now where I want them to run successful businesses, I'm gonna make sure I put my money where my mouth is. I would never ever ask someone to do something that I wouldn't do myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where I think, so when you come on retreat with me, you know I've invested that money. You know I'm giving you something that I have also received.
Yeah.
So it's not like, just selling something to make money, but rather doing it because I know it's worth it.
Yeah, of course.
And that you'll walk away knowing it's worth it too. But yeah, the investing in yourself, I think, is the fastest track to expansion.
Okay.
I think the quicker you allow, because money is just energy, and this is what the whole abundance challenge is about, but money is just energy. So how you view it, how you attach to it, tells me a lot about your self-worth.
Wow. Wow.
So I'll always ask people in sessions, and what's your relationship to money? And it's really, really, really interesting.
Fascinating, gal. I can't wait for that. Let's go. And then the last one was get over yourself and start posting. Yeah.
That's content is the quickest. I think like running a business, two strands of this, running a business and posting on social media will be the quickest way you build your nervous system's capacity to hold rejection, fear, discomfort.
Yeah.
Because to say in the beginning I used to post something and fire the phone across the room, I'm sure you've had this feeling where you're like, I can't look at that. And I might never reply. You'll notice if you go in, I find it really hard to reply to my comments.
Yeah.
Because when I do put something up, I actually struggle to go in and like look at what people are saying still, because I'm like, oh, my nervous system's so uncomfortable. Like I've put something uncomfortable for everybody to see. I'm exposed. People have an opinion. And like one of my mentors says, if you're not getting one hate comment a day, you're not doing it right.
That's really good.
Yeah, you want to be so authentic and so yourself and have an actual backbone that if people don't agree with you, good. At least you're polarizing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really, really, really interesting when you start and starting the business. Like you're going to fail. You're going to fail. At some point, you're going to have an empty class. Like the podcast isn't going to get any listens. Like there's going to be something that goes wrong. And I'll always say, like, what's your response? I don't care if fail. It's not failure.
Yeah.
We're failing forwards. But what's your response to this? Does it deter you completely and you just go, what, that doesn't work? That doesn't work for someone like me? Because I can guarantee you every single one of us I've failed miserably. Miserably. But my thing with failure is I'll look at it as like, okay, not right now, not yet, because something better is coming. And I won't attach to the failure.
I love that. when things aren't going well for me, I'm like, well, this obviously wasn't the thing. Can't wait to see what is the thing. Let's just like keep it moving,
Yeah, 100%. I like that post. What actually inspired the rejection one was I had like followed this yoga studio in Sydney. So when I went and did my YTT, I loved teaching yoga and I had taught Pilates beforehand. So like the teaching part of it felt fine for me, but in Sydney they have quite strict, it's not a rule, but kind of like an unspoken rule that you have to be teaching for at least 5 years to get a job in one of the big studios. And there was one particular studio with a teacher that runs that studio that I was obsessed with, like their style of yoga, everything. I went to every single one of their classes, like loved it. And then they did like open teaching days. So to put people on their roster, basically they would have had, it's kind of like an audition for yoga teaching, and you teach a part of the class and then it flips to the next person. So it's very high pressure, like all teachers in the room, you're teaching another group of teachers, and then they'll pick people from that. So I did it on the day, and I remember getting put on like their roster for their cover, so not their classes. Like I didn't get a class, and I was devastated. Thought, this is so embarrassing. Like every teacher in Sydney is after seeing me teach and like not get the job in particular.
Okay.
And I remember being embarrassed to go back into the studio and just practice as a student, and just having to have a word with myself, like sit myself down and be like, okay, keep it, shut up. Like you're just out. You're only just yoga teaching. Like, you're not going to get this right the first time. But I was really, really disappointed. And then I applied to loads of studios in Sydney at the time when I arrived, and they all just said, no, you don't have enough teaching experience. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm just not meant to do this. Like maybe I'm not meant to teach. I'm going to say 5 months later. So 5 months later, yeah, because I was just in Sydney, I had a retreat that I had to cancel the first time. Because I was doing it with somebody else and we just didn't align in the end. Her vision for the retreat and my vision for the retreat were two very different things. I ended up having to buy her out of this business that we had created with my life savings. So when I landed in Sydney, I had no money, like nothing. And I had to make the decision whether to gamble on running this retreat. Like, so she was a big influencer in the States. She was going to bring the people and I was just going to do the work on the retreat. when I bought her out, I took the risk on, I don't have a following, I don't have a community, I don't, who is going to come on this retreat? Like, I didn't know anybody else who had done it before me, so I was in a really, really sticky predicament. Landed in Sydney, and I was like, you're just gonna have to show up. Like, you're just gonna have to teach yoga classes and teach breathworks and hope that you convert at the end of it, that people like you and they want to come on your retreat. Spend all this money, all this hard-earned money for nobody who has money in Sydney when they arrive. And that Christmas, I got rejected for the yoga job. Applied to all these other studios, got nothing, was sitting my first day writing out my yoga class for the first yoga class on the retreat, and the teacher of the school was sitting next to me, like the yoga school. They were running their YTT in the same retreat centre. So they were actually had their yoga teacher training in the same retreat centre. He was sitting right next to me, and I looked up and he was like, hi, Kiva. I was like, hi, goes, what, are you coming on our yoga teacher training? I said, no, I'm running my retreat. He goes, you're running a retreat? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, are you not only just teaching? I was like, yeah. He goes, yeah, we didn't give you the job because we just said you just don't have enough experience. How did you get people to come on your retreat? And I was like, I just taught on the hill in Coogee. Like, I literally put on open classes and asked people to come, and people came on my retreat. He was like, you weren't meant to get the job in our studio.
Wow.
And like, still to this day, if I get offered jobs in studios, I will say no, because they'll pay me 50 quid for the hour. I make a lot more money teaching my own class through my own marketing lines. And having I got that job that day, I would have stayed. I would have been so enamored by the fact that like this big yoga studio wanted me. Chose me.
Yeah.
But in not being chosen, I think I chose myself. And then I got to sit there and say to him, I didn't need your job. But I did have this really like whoa moment of, would I even be on this retreat?
Wow.
Because they would run their own stuff. They run their own retreats and trainings. I would never have been in this position, basically.
Wow.
So yeah, the whole rejection is redirection thing, I back.
100%.
Sure.
Wow, gal.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a long-winded way of saying.
No, it wasn't.
It does
wasn't
all come back around.
Yeah,
you know?
of course. And I'm sure that there's so many people listening right now that are like, well, that's kind of like the time that I XYZ, you know?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And it might make sense now, but it will make sense in the future.
Yeah. And isn't it that having the faith that it's going to make sense, you know?
That's exactly
even though
it.
it makes no sense and it's actually devastating in the moment, just having the faith that like it's coming, the thing that's meant for you is actually coming to you, no matter how cliche that sounds or whatever. I think it's a cliche for a reason, because it's so true. It's so time and time again it happens, and you're like, oh, that's why that didn't work out. Fair enough.
100%. And if you're taking action, I think that's the biggest thing. Like, if you're sitting there not doing anything, waiting for the thing to come, it won't come. If you're there, putting yourself out there, making messy progress, that was exactly the example of that. I went in, I failed technically, and then I failed lots of times again. And then I was just like, well, fuck it. If you don't want me, I can create a community that does. And doing it, like that messy action forwards for yourself. I still think that now, like when you put yourself out there, you have no idea who's listening. Like you've listened, like you took something from that post.
Yeah.
I made that not thinking twice about it. You just put it up because you're like, this is what's on my mind today.
Yeah.
But it could actually like be that thing that somebody needs to hear, or it could be the class that someone needs to go to, or it could be the place where you meet someone who's, you know, really connected with you or really aligned with you. You don't know, but you need to show up. Like you need to be there.
100%.
So yeah, I always say that to facilitators as well. Like even if there's one person showing up to your class, that one person is meant to be there, and you have no idea what's going to come from that.
Wow.
So yeah,
so
it's
cool.
Exciting.
So
like it's
very
exciting.
exciting. Yeah, 100%. Okay, can we talk a bit about intergenerational trauma?
Of course.
Then? Let's go.
Of course.
What is your definition, understanding? Like, how would you, if you were to explain this to somebody, how would you go about that?
I think there's like two streams of thought, probably more, but this is just the way I will view it. And in our level 2, we do a whole module on like trauma transforming. So going beyond just being trauma informed, but actually deeply understanding how trauma shows up in spaces and how do we actually work with it, not just avoid it, because there's a lot of avoidance in spaces, which I understand as well.
Level 2 of what, Gal?
So my level 1 breathwork is like somatics and breathwork training. It's 100 hours, but my level 2 is in like a method that I hold. So it's like a mixture of body work, energetics, somatics, and breathwork. Yeah, it's fun. So they're in the middle.
Wow, Gal.
Yeah, we're on our second round of that. So they're in the middle of it.
Do you need a science background to do this? You
just need a base in something. So lots of people will have done the level 1. So there's, let's say, 13 people on the level 2 this year.
I would have imagined you would need to do the level 1 to do level 2, but to do level 1, do you need to be no,
nothing. Yeah, just lots of people do it for themselves,
Right.
or they come in thinking that they're going to do it for themselves and then they end up doing it for other people.
Okay.
But yeah, a lot of people, it's just like the interest in why it works, how breathwork works, trauma. Like a huge part of the course is trauma training. And then the other part of the course is the somatics, the breathwork, the energetics, the safety, the ethics, all of those things.
Okay.
But in level 2, we do this particular module on intergenerational trauma because my experience of being at home in Ireland is like nothing else. Now, the only thing I can compare it to in Australia is when you're meeting different cultures and you're seeing different things come up in bodies. So in case anybody doesn't know, when you come into breathwork, you actually become a little bit not unconscious in the sense of like you faint, but you come out of your prefrontal cortex. So you come out of your thinking mind because you're blowing off a lot of carbon dioxide. So it's actually physiological, like in your body, the biochemistry changes and blood flow moves from the front of our brain where we do a lot of thinking. We have like our ego, so who you think you are, what your brain says you are, kind of happens in these prefrontal cortex structures. And as you're in a breathwork session, the deeper you go into the session, the more expanded your awareness becomes, but the blood flow actually moves to different parts of your brain. So you might end up in your limbic system, which is why you might get really, really emotional. You might end up in your hippocampus, which is where you'll get memories. So it's really interesting to see
Wow.
people's experiences. But basically, when you come out of this thinking mind, your body will go through a process of, if you weren't controlling it, if you weren't who you think you are, if you broke out of the box that you've been put in, what would happen? And I watch people's bodies become primal. So I've seen like women give birth again, like it looks like they're totally giving birth. I've seen people like grieve and they come out and they go, I wasn't grieving something for me, I was grieving something else totally.
See.
It's huge. People do know, so particularly people who've done a lot of like deep shadow work or inner work, who know themselves, like they know the feeling of self or the voice of self quite strongly. They have come out of sessions and said, that wasn't for me, like that was for somebody else. Some people have been like, I healed something in my dad in that session.
And when you're saying that wasn't for me, you're saying that experience wasn't of me, it was of someone in my lineage.
Yeah,
Yes.
something either before me, or like lots of people will be like, that was for my mom or that was for my granny. Some people have like seen themselves give birth and like the baby not make it, or like die in childbirth. Like it's crazy. Now you'll never see something that you're not ready to hold. So I would always say like this stuff isn't scary, because if you're like, oh, I don't want that, your brain's very protective. Your brain will go, you don't need to see that. So an experience that happens in breathwork in particular is people will go in, I will watch it happen in their body. Like I'll watch their body move through something, or like grieve something huge, and they'll come out and they'll be like, I was just in bliss. Like I was on Rainbow Road in Mario Kart having a great time. And they won't remember any of it, but I will have watched them move through something traumatic. But your body is so intelligent, it doesn't make you relive that in the right safety. So if you're in containers where it's unsafe, where like it's too big of a group, or the facilitator isn't really attuned to you, you can end up snapping in and you know, seeing things. So I'll always just say like, be very discerning with who you go to and like where you go, because those things happen when the body feels safe enough to process it. Intergenerational trauma, I think, kind of comes two ways. So we have epigenetics, which is the genes or the genome at the time of the stress. So if we think about, I don't know, like even famine in Ireland, and there are other studies from other countries to show correlation here, but like famine in Ireland, people were starving. Like you didn't know where your next meal was going to come from. Money was non-existent. People were on the poverty line, like totally different. That is, if you're Irish, that is in your intergenerational line, right? You have genes, you have genetics that have been passed down from somebody who lived in that time. So the stress that they endured at that time changed their genome in some way in order to survive, because humans are incredibly adaptable. So we have seen different things. Like, I mean, you could look at different health conditions. I'm not going to specify them because the evidence for each individual thing isn't unbelievable, but you can look into this yourself if you are suffering with something. Like I know thyroid is mentioned in it, things like IBS, things like diabetes, like all those things. I would look into, at what point might the genome have changed or the genetics change to endure the stress that the person was under, and then they pass that genetics down to you. So this story that women, or this life that women have endured, is literally encoded into your genetics.
Gal, I feel that.
Yeah.
I feel that. Yeah. Okay.
And look, like there's other studies with mice where they basically like shocked the mouse, or they did some form of something not so nice to a mouse 2 generations before, and then they put a scent in. So let's say we use like, I don't know, some scent, lavender or something, so that when the mouse got the shock, they put in the scent of lavender. And then 2 generations later, so a mouse that had never met grandmother mouse, they didn't shock them, but they put in the scent of lavender and that mouse went mad.
Whoa.
That mouse was scared of the scent of lavender. Like that's just showing you that an environmental stress associated with something will basically trigger a nervous system or trigger genetics
Whoa.
in lineages that are going to come ahead of you. So one of the biggest things that I think we can do as women in this lifetime is break the intergenerational trauma, break the curse that has been put into your family. And whether that is that you speak up, whether that is that you have autonomy over your body, all of the things, like you are probably the most free ancestor to ever exist in your generational line. And that just gives me shivers that like I'm the most financially free, I'm the most body autonomy. Like I have the most freedom of anyone who's ever existed.
Yeah.
Now, how do I ensure that that gets passed forward and not the other shit?
And continues to expand. That freedom continues to expand because we're not even as free as we could be now.
No.
you know?
Like
Yeah.
there's always more, and we can always do more. And I think each generation has their thing that they're kind of here to overcome or to pass on. But the other side of intergenerational trauma, I think, is really interesting, is stories that are passed down. So yes, we have the epigenetics and the DNA, and then you have the stories. So
Gals, I know you didn't want that to end. I didn't either, but part 2 will be coming back next week. I'm really grateful for the ability to do this kind of work, and I hope that this episode has given you maybe a bit of inspiration on how you can change things for your kids, your grandkids, and your family line, because we'll all be better off for it, and it's really well worth the work. So thanks for listening. I said that I would recommend a couple of documentaries that you could watch that would give you a bit more of an education on this, and both of them are on the RTE player. So one is called Missing Children, that covers the whole thing about Tuam and Catherine Corliss and her work. Loads of interviews there with her. So that's a really good documentary to watch on the RT player. And then the second one is the one that came out most recently called Testimony. That is the one around the mother and baby homes and the fight for the justice that women should just get, because we're humans and we have human rights. However, there is some remarkable work being done by Dr. Maeve O'Rourke and Claire McGettrick. If you follow them both on Instagram, you'll get to keep up with the work that they're doing. I find them endlessly inspiring. I find them like, how do they do what they do? They're incredible. And gals, if we didn't have women like them doing the work that they're doing, we wouldn't be anywhere. So thank you so much, Dr. Maeve O'Rourke. Thank you so much, Claire McGettrick. And that's just 2 of a multitude of women that are doing the work. And also to all of the survivors on those, especially on that documentary Testimony, just powerhouses of women. And we've learned a lot from you, and we continue to thank you for your work. So gals, enjoy your week. Remember, say this with me now, say this with me: I'm good enough exactly as I am. I'm good enough exactly as I am. Yes, thank you, well done. You are. Have a lovely week, and I'll be back next week for part 2. Thanks, gals.